You think you're too old to start a YouTube channel or that business or that side hustle you've been thinking about for the past 3 years. I'm going to be blunt with you, that belief is costing you everything. Here's what's actually happening while you're sitting on the sidelines convinced you've missed your window, while these 22-year-olds that have probably got less than half your experience are building the audience that you believe that you should have. They're teaching things that you probably actually know better than them. You've got that experience and they're getting paid for it. And look, I get it. If you're from like a Muslim family like myself, you spent your whole life being told you're behind on something. Why aren't you a doctor yet? Your cousin Rizwan just bought a new Toyota. So you've internalized this idea that if you haven't started by a certain age, then you've missed your chance. But here's the wildest part. The creator economy itself is actually dominated by people over 35. They earn more, they retain their audience better, and they build businesses that last because they have something teenagers can't fake, and that is real experience. Your mum's friend's son might have 10,000 followers on TikTok, but you've got 2 decades of actual knowledge, and that's your real advantage. And the content creator economy, that economy is growing massively. We're talking billions of pounds flowing for YouTube, newsletters, courses, digital products. This isn't a trend that's going away, it's only getting bigger and bigger. So in this video, I'm talking about age anxiety, how it's the thing stopping you from starting. I'm going to show you why being old is actually your advantage and what happens when you realize that 5 years from now, you'll be 5 years older, whether you start today or not. Okay, so let's kill this myth right now. You think content creation is for young people with too much time and zero responsibilities. And look, I get why you think that. You scroll through social media and it feels like everyone successful started when they were like 16 years old with perfect skin and unlimited energy. But that's not the data. That's what the algorithm kind of shows you. The actual creator economy is dominated by people over 35. They're not just participating, they're winning. High earnings, really good audience retention, businesses that have lasted much longer than any sort of TikTok trend. Why? Because when a 25-year-old talks about productivity, they've got what, like 3 years of real world work experience, maybe 5 years if they started really early in their career. But when you talk about productivity, you're bringing 2 decades of lessons learned the hard way. That's not a weakness, that's authority. That's value people will actually pay for. And you know, you don't have to have 2 decades of experience. You know, whether you have 20 years of experience, 10, 5, whatever it is, when you get started, you can provide real value and you don't have to think that you're too old for this. And the other thing that drives me crazy is that, you know, you probably already know this. You see some of these videos and you think, you know what, I could do this better. I could teach this better. I've got real good experience with that. And you know, you see someone half your age giving advice that you learned 10 years ago, but you're not creating, you're watching, you're scrolling, you're stuck in this loop of I should have started years ago, while someone younger, less qualified than you builds the audience that you should have. And I know what you're thinking. I've been thinking this the same myself, but Iqbal, I'm already 35 or 40 or 50. I've missed my window. And look, if you're from like a Muslim family, you've probably heard this your whole life in different forms. Beta, you're 28 and still not married. Your cousin already has 2 kids in a software engineering job. There's always a timeline and you always feel like you're behind on something. Now, I want you to hear this clearly. In 5 years, you will be 5 years older, whether you start today or not. The only question is whether you've built something by then or whether you'll still be sitting here having the exact same conversation with yourself. Actually, scratch that. It'll be worse because in 5 years, you'll have 5 more years of regret stacked on top of what you already feel. So the important thing is to kind of get rid of that self-judgment. Stop being so like hard and negative on yourself. It's about trying to get going and moving forward and getting that momentum. So when was the last time you dismissed an idea because you thought I should have started years ago? Really think about that, because I'm willing to bet there's something right now, today, that you'll be putting off for the exact same reason. Look, I'm going to ask you a question that might sound harsh, but I need you to really sit with it. And this is something that I've said to myself. What else am I going to do? Seriously, if I don't start this YouTube channel, that business, that thing that I've been dreaming about for years, what's the alternative? You know, I just continue exactly as I am, because I can guarantee you that's one way to stay exactly where I am and not be happy. Who cares how old you are, how long it takes? The time is going to pass anyway. I heard a story that completely changed about how I think about this. There was a 70-year-old man who decided that he wanted to memorize the Quran. Now, most people think Quran memorization is only for young people. Like, if you don't do it as a kid inside the madrasa, which is like a, you know, Islamic school, then you've missed your boat. This man didn't care. He started at 70. And by the time he was 82, 12 years later, he actually memorized the entire Quran. 12 years. That hit me hard when I first heard it, because it's true for everything. You know, you want to learn French? Start today. In 3 years, you'll either speak French or you won't. But you'll be 3 years older either way. How about you just try learning one verse of the Quran a day? Just one. You know, know, over 10, 20, 30 years, who knows where you'll end up. And if you don't start, I could tell you exactly where you will end up, right here, having the same conversation. I used to put so much pressure on myself based on my age. By 30, I need to be making £1,000 a month. By 35, I should have a really big business. By, you know, this age, I should have kids. By this age, I should be married. I know a lot of people have these kind of things in their head. And you know what that kind of thinking did to me? It paralyzed me, because these goals were impossible to measure day by day. Now I focus on the input goals, the things that I can control. Did I write today? Did I publish today? Did I show up today? That's what really matters. That's what you can actually do something about. Here's a real problem with age anxiety. It creates this massive pressure. You think, I'm already behind, so I need to catch up fast. I need to go all in. I need to do all this perfectly because I don't have time to waste. And that pressure, it stops you from starting. And when we start thinking about our age, it causes so much anxiety. Oh no, I'm getting older. I'm running out of time. And that anxiety is so intense that we can't even take the first step. This is where I absolutely love the Japanese principle of Kaizen. It's just about getting 1% better, getting small wins under your belt. And what I love about this is that it just completely helps to deal with that pressure and try and remove it. Actually, I have a whole email newsletter about this that goes deeper, but let me give you the best example I've ever heard. Flossing one tooth. That's it. Don't try to floss all your teeth, just floss one tooth. Because when you start with just one tooth, it seems like almost nothing, but that's the point. It gets you in the habit of flossing. Then when you feel ready, you can start flossing another tooth. And if you feel like you've ended up doing too much and just went too fast too soon, you can always scale back. The most important thing is just to get started. We need to take a lesson from the Quran here. You can't memorize the Quran overnight. It is, you know, full of a lot of verses and chapters, and you know, you can't do it in a week or a month. You know, you have to do a little bit each day. That's how it is really, like, you know, there's a lot to memorize, and people that do memorize it spend a lot of time dedicated to that, and usually when they're young kids. But you know, think about how your mum makes a perfect chai without measuring anything. You know, she didn't start out making perfect chai. She made it every single day for decades until it became second nature. Same principle, just reps. And once you get used to it and you start building up those small wins, that builds momentum, and momentum is everything. Sometimes we're not even sure how to progress. We're stuck because we don't know what step 20 looks like. But here's the secret: you don't need to know what step 20 looks like. You just need to focus on the next step, and that reduces the anxiety. And when you get information and feedback and insights, that is what will tell you what the step after that is. But just focus on that next step. I had no idea how to edit YouTube videos when I started, zero, but I didn't need to know everything. I just needed to start with a search on YouTube on how to edit videos. That led me to Final Cut Pro. Then I slowly started editing videos and learning as I went. Then I realized editing was taking too much time, which led me to take a course on YouTube about editing faster. And that led me eventually to find an editor who could do better than me anyway. But if I'd waited until I knew how to edit properly before starting my channel, I'd still be waiting. I'd still be stuck in research mode, watching tutorials instead of making videos. You know, you just start getting used to it. You've got to build that momentum up with little wins. And as you start doing that next step, the step after that would then start to appear. So just start with 1%. Once you start, you establish a pattern, you learn what to do next. The answers will come from doing, not from thinking. Here's another thing that will really get you if you let it, and that's comparing yourself to others. You're 40 and you see someone who's 28 with 1 million subscribers and you think, I'm so far behind, what's the point? And I've definitely done that myself, and I'm in my 40s. But that comparison is completely useless. Actually worse than useless. It's actually harmful. And you know, if you're from a Muslim family, you've probably had a PhD in unhelpful comparison since birth. Every Eid gathering is like a performance review. Your cousin Imran just became a doctor. Fatima's daughter is already engaged. Why aren't you more like so-and-so? It's like as if we're all on the same exact timeline. It's much better to focus on yourself. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday or last month or last year. See that you're making progress, even if it's small. I look at the email newsletters I've written. The first one took me forever. Hours and hours of staring at a blank screen, second guessing every sentence, completely paralyzed by trying to make it look perfect. Now it's a much better process. I sit down, I write, I ship. Danko calls this beginner hell. You just have to find a way to keep going through it. Like doing things like Kaizen, just getting a little bit better. And you have to accept that it's going to be bad at first. Everyone is bad at first. Actually, you know what really helps with this is having a way to track your progress. And something that I love using is like a habit tracker. So when I read the Quran or do exercise, I just mark a tick. That's it, simple. And that helps me stay motivated in two ways. First, I see a long line of ticks when something's going well. That's visual proof that I'm showing up and that I'm not just thinking about doing things, I'm actually doing them. Second, and this is huge, it shows me what's working, what's not working. By trying to read Quran for 30 minutes a day, sounds good, right? But when I looked at my habit tracker, I wasn't hitting it consistently enough. So I reduced it to 10 minutes instead of 30. And then I reduced it down to 5 minutes because I wanted to establish the habit. And guess what? It was way better, way more consistent. More consistency beats intensity every single time. I also use Duolingo to learn French and Arabic. And one feature I absolutely love is a daily streak. I'm currently on 740 days. That's like a long time, and it's amazing for me to look at that. Now here's the thing, the streak keeps me motivated to continue. It's proof that I can show up every single day, even when I don't feel like it, especially when I don't feel like it. You know what you're definitely not going to see on my Duolingo? A comparison to other learners of my age. Now who cares? The number means nothing. What matters is, am I better at French than I was 740 days ago? Absolutely I am, and that's the only comparison that counts. Okay, we talked about why age isn't the problem, why you need to start now, and how to actually do it without the anxiety kind of just really paralyzing you. But there's something else I want to share that doesn't get talked about enough. The massive benefits of being a business person and content creator that have nothing to do with money. When you set up a business or start creating content, you learn skills you would never have learned otherwise. Editing, writing scripts, problem solving, managing money, showing up consistently even when you don't feel like it. These aren't just business skills, they're life skills, and you can't learn them from a course. You learn them by doing. But here's the part that really gets me excited, and that's the connections you can make. Ali Abdaal and Justin Welsh both talk about how they've made incredible friends and business deals specifically because they had an online presence. People reach out, opportunities appear, collaborations happen that would have been impossible if they were still invisible and not online. And I would love that. The idea of putting my work out there that would allow me to connect with other people. That sounds amazing. Now that someone on the other side of the world potentially could watch a video and think, no, I need to talk to that person. That is truly amazing. But honestly, there's one more reason that matters to me more than any of that, and that's my son. I want to inspire my son by modeling to him that he can set up a business, that he can solve problems, that he can be consistent, and that he can persevere when things get hard. And I can't do that by just telling him. You know how kids are. They don't listen to what you say. They watch what you do. Growing up, how many lectures did we sit through? Study hard, better. Don't waste time. Meanwhile, we were more inspired by watching our parents actually hustle. Whether that was running a corner shop, working night shifts, or building something from scratch in a new country. It's amazing what our parents have done and how much they have just worked for us. So part of the reason I'm doing this business is so I can show him with action, not words, so that when he's older and he has an idea, he doesn't think I can't do that, or I'm too young, or I'm too old. He thinks my dad did it, I can do it too. That's legacy. That's something money can't buy. And if you have kids or nieces or nephews, younger siblings, you have the same opportunity. What you do now doesn't just affect you, it affects what they believe is possible as well. Let me leave you with this. Taking regular action every day makes a massive difference. Even 30 minutes a day compounds over a year. Dan Coe made millions from his online presence and selling digital products. And he says this, 1 hour of focused work daily compounds into an empire. 1 hour. That's it. Most important thing, keep going and let it compound. I like using the analogy of learning a language, which I'm literally doing with French and Arabic. The main challenge isn't figuring out the grammar rules and memorizing the vocabulary. It's just being consistent every day so that eventually you know the language. You don't become fluent in a week or a month, but 6 months of daily practice, a year, you're a different person. Same with your business, same with your YouTube channel, same with anything that is worth doing. 6 months from now, you'll wish you'd started today. So start today. If you're sitting here thinking, you're too old to start, you're wrong. The creator economy rewards experience, not youth. Your age is your advantage, not your limitation. If you're stuck thinking I should have started years ago, yeah, maybe you should have, but you didn't, and you can't change that. But what you can change is whether you'll be saying the same thing 5 years from now. And another important thing is that self-judgment and being too critical on ourselves. It's not about that. It's about being able to bounce back and do things. You will have setbacks, that's totally fine, but it's about how you bounce back and do things, and and how you deal with those setbacks. But another thing is just to start small. Use Kaizen, floss 1 tooth, write 1 sentence, record 1 minute of video. Just start. The path itself will reveal as you start walking. And compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to someone else's highlight reel. Track your progress, build the evidence that you can show up. So here's what I would love for you to do. Comment below and tell me what's the one thing you've been putting off because you thought you were too old. Let's get it out in the open, because I guarantee someone else is stuck on the same thing. And if this video helped you, please do me a favor and hit that like button. And remember, don't count the days, make the days count. Assalamu alaikum.